Good morning. This is Bob Passy. We're going to talk again about what's going on in this country, as usual. And this time, I might call it the broken system. That's hardly news to anyone who's alive in the United States at this point. But I think it's important to realize that broken system is just from our perspective, the perspective of ordinary citizens. The system is functioning incredibly well on all its cylinders for those people who are for the economic elite. And we have to remember that over the years that system has been changed and developed primarily to meet the goals of the economic elite. And it is meeting them incredibly well. All you have to do is look at income inequality as one measure. It's just kind of off the scale and getting worse. So from their perspective, they have accomplished exactly what they wanted to accomplish. From our perspective, it is a total disaster. And we need to remember that we're not, that system has been developed not to allow change, the kind of change that we want. So we have to find a way to work outside that system and go back to a system that is not radical at all, and that's to have the American democracy back again. But I just want to give you some examples of how problems are dealt with in this country. Why, for instance, we have gun violence. Oh my goodness, do we have gun violence, especially relative to anybody else in the world. But even relative to this country, the gun violence is growing. And what we have is, the reason we don't find answers is because there's huge profits to be made with guns and gun violence. So from their perspective, this is not a problem that's going to get solved. Basically, what it is there is much more money to be made in dealing with problems than in solving them. For instance, if you, in the healthcare industry, why is our healthcare costs so out of proportion to anyone else in the world? It's because there's a lot of money being made, and it's not, in other words, for our suffering, they're making a lot of money. The same with disaster relief. Why do we not want to talk about climate change or environmental change? Because there's a lot of money to be made in dealing with the problems that it creates, rather than, there are problems that would help human beings, ordinary citizens, but they're not even considered in any serious way. You could take almost any kind of a thing. Why do we have so many more prisoners than any other countries? Because there's a lot of money to be made in prisoners. Every problem that you can think of, somebody in this system can find a way to make a lot of money. And as long as they're making a lot of money and the system is based primarily on the goal being economics, in other words, you still hear the answer, well, no, we can't afford to do that. Well, we can't afford to do it because they have made the decision that economic qualifications are the only things that matter. It doesn't matter what happens with ordinary people. We have wars all over the world now, and is there money to be made in wars? Oh, goodness gracious, there's money. And do we care about collateral damage? Not really. I mean, just look at the refugee program that we have pretty much turned our back on. We're making money and we don't care about the mess that it creates. That's the same thing is true on almost every level of this country. And so, and they're not going to change. I mean, they control all the levers of power, and they're not about to change. So we have to figure out, we know how to do this. We just have to get united in terms of we have to get back to democracy, what I would call democracy first, and then we can resolve these problems, because in the system that we have, there's no way to do it. The system will block you at every way They want to tell you you can change within the system, but you can't. I mean, it's like the corporation that tells you to put your ideas in the suggestion box. Do you really think the corporation is going to change because someone put something in the suggestion box? Are you kidding? This is kind of what the country has turned into. And just in case you think that you have to have some kind of national leadership, or that you have to have some kind of statement that determines how everybody should act. Just look at what happened with the women's issues, with you know, the sexual predatory kinds of things that are being exposed now, and the Me2 movement. You want a grassroots movement? There it is, and it's going to change the entire culture. And that's what we have to do with democracy. We have to say, the key thing is we have to go back to democracy, and we have to walk away from this system that is not working for us. From their perspective, it is. From our perspective, it is absolutely not. And we have to pay attention to our perspective, not theirs. So you have to begin to think about, how are you going to make the change? How are you going to walk away from this system and put your energy back into democracy? And it can be 1,000 little things. It doesn't have to be some movement that is directed from Washington or something with some great leader. All of you can do this. Little things, little things, little things add up. The Me2 movement is a perfect example. Okay, think about that, and I'll talk to you again later. Bye now.